I'd like to tell you about a boarding school that I visited just outside of London, and it's not in a very good place. Every year, the students have to take a final exam that they need to pass in order to graduate and move on. 67% of the students failed this final exam. The school is finding it really hard to attract new teachers and also to retain them. A third of the new staff left before they ended their first year. The students should be in the classrooms, but they're spending most of their days in their rooms, sometimes 22 or 23 hours each day. And the school is seeing record levels of violence, self-harm, and even suicide. Despite these problems, parents continue sending their children to the school, and it's really expensive. It costs between £60,000 and £200,000 per student per year. What's going on here? By now, you might have deduced that there's no way that I could be talking about a school, but I am talking about a real institution here in England. I'm talking about a youth prison. Has anything changed for you? Because the situation is still the same. We're still talking about a system that has a 67% failure rate measured in reoffending. We're still talking about record levels of violence, self-harm, and suicide, a problem retaining and attracting new staff. A system that costs us as taxpayers between £60,000 and £200,000 per young person per year. And the situation is pretty similar for adults. They have a 45% reoffending rate within 1 year of release from prison. The total cost to society is £2.2 billion per year. Surely, we can do better. But maybe we don't want to. Maybe when I started talking about prisons and prisoners instead of students in school, you switched off. Because who cares if these people who broke the law, messed up, knew what the consequences were of the crime that they committed, are in a failing system? Maybe they deserve to be there. So here are 2 reasons to care. First, sometimes when we talk about prisoners and prisons, we forget that we're talking about people. These are parents, siblings, children. Did you know that more children are affected by imprisonment in the UK than by divorce each year? We're talking about a system that breaks up families. And second, whether or not we think that we're affected by imprisonment or not, we are. 99.9% of people in prison will be released and will come back to society. That's 99.9% of people in prison will be released and will rejoin society as our neighbors, our colleagues, people that we interact with as fellow citizens. Would we rather that they're coming back from a system that's failing to keep us all safe, or one that's working? What I'm describing isn't new. Prisons have been failing since their inception nearly 200 years ago. The reoffending rate hasn't changed that much. And we have tried a few approaches to improve the prison system. We've tried incremental change, tweaks. We've tried to improve the failing system. We've tried a prison system that has more prison officers so that it'll fail a little bit less. We've tried a prison system that has more rehabilitative programs so that it will fail a little bit less. Fundamentally, though, we're still left with a prison system that is failing. We've also tried removing some groups of people from prison so that it will fail with fewer people in it. We've acknowledged that prison is not the right fit for some groups of people. Perhaps not the right fit for vulnerable women, under 18s or under 21s, people who have mental health conditions. It's a little bit arbitrary, but even if we removed all of these groups from our prisons, we'd still be left with the same problem, a group of people in a failing system. There's a third option, though, that is glaringly obvious, but somehow we haven't really talked about it. And that is to replace the whole failing system. To replace the whole system with one that works more effectively, to keep all of us safe and to reduce crime. It might sound difficult, But we're talking about a society that invented the internet and blockchain, so surely we can figure out a way to replace a 200-year-old, archaic, failing prison system. We actually know what an alternative to prison that would be more effective could look like, and I'm going to share with you 3 aspects of that. The first aspect is that it would involve true accountability. Currently, people might commit a crime, go to prison, and not acknowledge the harm that they've caused to the victim or society, and then be released. In a system of true accountability, we might see a restorative justice situation where the victim or the victim's family meets with the perpetrator of the crime. And together they discuss the impact that the crime has had on the victim's well-being, their business, their family. The perpetrator would acknowledge that harm. They would then together agree a way forward, some sort of restitution with a punishment that fits the severity of the crime committed. Restorative justice is a method that Indigenous communities around the world have been using successfully for thousands of years. And we know that restorative justice, alongside community sanctions, like community service or fines, are not only more effective at reducing crime than prison, but they're also cheaper. The second approach is that the system would be person-centered. Pretty much every other system figures out what's causing the problem before offering a solution, not imposing a one-size-fits-all approach that seems to not fit anyone very well, like we do in criminal justice. We could learn from how doctors diagnose an illness before offering a treatment and understand what's causing the underlying issue to take place. What is causing the crime to happen? Is it a dysfunctional relationship, a mental health issue, a drug or alcohol addiction? What's at the heart of the problem? And make sure that we're addressing that before we move forward. The police are already starting to do this. They've seen that many of the people that they're called in about have underlying mental health needs. So the police are training in how to best support these people, how to signpost them. We could see an extension of this service to an emergency response team with specialized units to support people with mental health conditions, people with drug or alcohol addictions, domestic violence, neighborhood disputes. It would be a person-centered, localized service, and it would reduce crime drastically. The third aspect is that we'd see joined-up social services systems. We'd see education, speaking to healthcare, speaking to childcare, welfare, benefits. All of these systems would collaborate, share data, work together, instead of working in silos. This type of joined-up approach would have far-reaching benefits outside of criminal justice as well. I have a vision. My vision is of a world without crime. Can you imagine how incredible that would be to walk home every night and not have to look over your shoulder because you're afraid? To not have to worry about the safety or security of your friends or your family? To make that vision possible, we need to replace our failing prison system with one that keeps us all safe and that effectively reduces crime. I'm talking about real systems change. And all of us are game changers. We can make this possible. So let's stop talking about incremental changes to our prison system so that it will fail a little bit less. Let's stop talking about removing certain groups of people from our prison system so that it will fail with fewer groups of people in it. And let's start talking about replacing the whole system. Just like we would replace a failing school with one that educates, let's replace our failing prisons with a system that keeps us all safe and reduces crime effectively. We are all better off in a world without prison, and we can make it possible. Thank you.